You want to know how to completely ruin your kids? I'm going to give you the top 12 ways that you can do that as a parent. I'm going to talk to you about those. Listen, parents, you were meant to lead and support your children as they go through their different challenges, no matter what those challenges are, even if they have a mental health diagnosis, even if they've had trauma, all of it. Like, you are perfectly meant to parent your children and to help them through that. It is not true that our children are supposed to live in a world that we've created that is free of stress, where we handle their struggles and even that we say that they're struggling when they're really just growing up. So here's some ways that you can ruin your kids, and I'm going to talk about each one of them. So number one, don't hold them responsible for anything. I see this a lot. We do this a lot in our society, where we blame, that we have all these reasons why things happened or why they didn't happen. So you want to ruin your kids? Don't hold them responsible for anything. Don't make them do anything they don't want to. This is a really hot topic, especially with neurodivergent kids. More and more kids are being diagnosed with, well, it's not a real diagnosis, but I hear it all the time, so it starts to sound really real, that with pathological avoidance disorders, or that they need low demand because they have task avoidance, all of those things. Yes, they do. And if they're neurodivergent, they may have it more than other kids. But if you really want to ruin your kids and so that they cannot function at any level, then you're not going to make them do anything that they don't want to do. They are doing sports and it gets too hard, you let them quit. If they are learning to play a musical instrument, you give up on it. I just remember that when I was growing up, my dad said something to me that probably didn't mean as much to me as a kid as it meant to me as later as an adult. He said that anytime you learn something new, you go through a hard period where it's not very much fun. You have to stick with it until you learn it. Then you can decide if it's fun or not. So just a little bit of wisdom from my dad. The third one is to allow them to avoid all struggle. This is where we try to solve everything for them. Like and we think that we can help them to get through the different things, and we let them, if they're having problems with friends, if they're, having problems at school, we want to change the environment so they're not having any problems. And that is not going to help them. We want to help them to learn how to work through their struggles. I'm not about just, tossing them out and saying, figure it out, but helping them to work through that and being a part of the problem-solving process, but letting them come to their own decisions. Like, what if they're having problems with their friends and they're like, I'm never going to talk to them again? And then we want to go talk to the parents or the school or the kids, and it's like, okay, that's an option. So how does that work? How do you, what does that look like? And I don't blame you, but how are you going to do that? And just helping them to trust even their own thought processes enough to work through something. And I think that that's a big thing that a lot of young adults are missing, is they haven't had those experiences of having to work through some things and problem solve. So number 4, allow them to do only what they want to do when they want to do it at all times. Do you feel like emptying the dishwasher right now? Do you feel like you want to go to Taekwondo tonight? Do you feel like this is, going to school? And then when they say no, then we say, well, you have to. And then they have a big fit. And then we say that they're oppositional or whatever. I'm not making light of some of the really big challenges. Listen, I'm there with you. I work through those, but these are just some ideas that maybe there's some other ways to handle things. Number 5, give them zero structure or guidance. If you've listened to any of my videos, I probably don't even need to talk about this very much, but I have seen a whole generation of parents that don't want to, have their child be anything in particular or any way. They don't feel like they should have any standards, values, because the kids need to come to their own conclusions about all of that. yeah, that's a great way to kind of ruin your kid. So pander to their feelings. Again, I talked about that already, where you just, if they want to do it, they don't want to do it. Would you feel like doing it later? And then being upset because your kids never listen to you, they never do what you want them to do. And yeah, so giving in to them is number 7. Give in to them what they want and whenever they want it. So we got to work on that. We need to help kids understand the reciprocal part of relationships. Number 8, never set or enforce boundaries. It's a good way to kind of ruin what you've got going on. You want to have boundaries. I hear parents tell me all the time that my child doesn't respect my boundaries. They don't respect anybody's boundaries. They don't respect authority, all of that. So I have videos on boundaries and how to set boundaries. And I just did a parent workshop where I talked about setting boundaries. And boundaries are really for you. Like if somebody's not respecting your boundaries, you need to really look at if you have a boundary for real. Usually we're just resentful because we feel like we got walked over by our kids or whatever, but it's the same thing with asking them to do something and then being upset because they say that they don't want to, and now they're not respecting what you said for them to do. But so look at how you're setting up those boundaries. Number 9, we make excuses for their bad behavior instead of correcting it. Oh man, I see this a lot. And the thing is that usually when parents come to me, they're already so upset about all the bad behaviors. But then when we get in there and we start working on it, we have to really let go of this idea that the behaviors and the struggle and all the things that they're going through isn't what they're meant to go through, and that we're not going to excuse it. We're going to deal with it, but we're going to deal with it also in how we're dealing with it, and how to get our children to be more willing to be in that kind of a relationship with us where there's more give and take. We don't want everything to be geared only towards them when they want something, when they want to do something, all that. Nobody can live that way in a society. It's not going to serve us very well. Number 10, you're going to treat them like fragile glass instead of the capable beings that they are. Oh man, this is a big one. We want to raise resilient kids. We want our kids, whatever level they are, whatever diagnosis they have, we want them to be as functional as possible. And we want them where they're not fragile. They're not glass. We're not going to protect them so much from their struggles that they're having. And I'm realizing that that's a big piece of what I think that, maybe we've been lied to as parents by society, that our kids should, that it's our job as parents to keep them from being too stressed and not having struggles. But you know what? I have seen more and more and more the increase in kids with anxiety is just incredible. And I think that some of this comes from not letting them experience some things and go through some things with our guidance to be able to help them. It's kind of like coaching, right? Like I'm a parent coach, I'm coaching you as you're in it, and we have to do that for our kids too. We have to come alongside and guide, so that, but they still have to do the hard work. They still have to go through the struggles. We can't just take all the struggles away. We can't change the environment because we don't like it or it's not good for our children. And I'm talking in a very general way about parenting, and I'm not talking about specifics about times when our kids do need our actual protection and safety. But look at how you're managing all of that, right? Because I think especially if you have kids that have been diagnosed early on, or you had a diagnosis when you were younger, maybe you still have it, there can be this kind of overcompensating for that and wanting everything to be okay and normal. And even kids with autism that want their environment a certain way, like we have to work with them, because we can't do that. We can't go change everything in society so that our autistic kids feel okay. We can change some things, and some things need to change for sure, but they're not fragile glass. They're also humans having their first human experience, just like we are, and we can get through this together. Let their emotions dictate your decisions. This is a big one that I help parents on, because a lot of times, even when we're trying to make the changes and as we're implementing the changes, the parents will be like, they're not going to like it. They're not going to want to do this. I was just talking with a family the other day that was, really needed some coaching, and everything was like, well, I don't know if my son would like it if I was getting this help. I don't think that my he hasn't gone to school for 2 years because he doesn't like it. He's not coming out of his bedroom now. He's not doing anything but gaming. It's like, yeah, we have to make some decisions about our household and how we want it to be. And it doesn't mean that we're going to change them completely of who they are, but there's a part of living that also involves some things that maybe we don't always want to do. It's not always pleasant. It's not always perfect. So yeah, letting their emotions dictate your decisions is a big one. And sometimes you just need somebody to come alongside you and as a parent coach and be able to say, this is what you're doing, and here's how I can help you, or even just to see it a different way. Because when we're and I was like this as a parent too, like we're so in the trenches with our kids and we see things from our perspective and we see things from maybe, from our kids' perspective, but we might have lost track of like how everybody else in the world is experiencing our child. I work with a lot of families that have kids that are really aggressive, destructive in their homes, violent. And I ask them, like, if your neighbor kid came over and acted like this, what would you do? Like, what would that be like? And so that there's some decisions, like you don't want your child to live this way in your house. So you need some extra help, somebody from the outside to kind of help you to know how to maneuver that and how to deal with that, especially somebody like myself that has done it. Like I've actually been in the homes and helped kids to stop being so destructive and aggressive and all of those things. But letting their rages and their emotions dictate your decisions is not the way that you want to go. And the last one is you're going to protect them from every consequence of their actions, which is kind of the same as the first one, not holding them responsible for anything. But yeah, they need to learn cause and effect. If this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. And so it just made me think of a funny story. Family I was working with had a kid that was really aggressive, destructive, had ruined just about everything in their house at one time or another. They had given up on a lot of that, which was unfortunate because I think that we don't want to do that. But as I was working with them, they were starting to be able to kind of define, some of his responsibility and some things that he could definitely carry the consequences for. And it kind of came down to, because of some of his aggressive behavior, at first it was even towards me as a worker in the home. And I just made no bones about it. It's like, that happens again, I will call the police. And I told the parents, like, if this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. But it's not just to call them. Like, I am very purposeful in the intent of what we're doing and where we're trying to go. But I feel like a big piece of it is not protecting them from the consequences of what just happened. And I really encourage that to happen in the home without having to call for outside help. But in this case, we were just talking about whether this was what we were going to do with this pretty strong, athletic 13-year-old kid that was pretty much a bully to everyone in his family, including his parents. And his dad said, well, aren't you worried about what he'll learn when he's in detention? That there might be bad kids in there that he might learn bad stuff from? And I'm sorry, but it just made me laugh, because he was one of the meanest, toughest kids I had ever worked with. And yet they were worried about the influence of other kids. And I said, aren't you worried that other parents are worried about your kid around their kids, like at school? Aren't you worried about, it just was interesting. But I think that comes from that protection, right? Like, oh, I don't want them to fall in with a bad crowd, or I don't want them to do this, all these fears that aren't even really about what's happening right now. So that is my list. And I just want to remind you that it's true. that parents really need to lead and support their children. But if you have kids with mental health issues, if you have kids that are have been adopted, they have trauma, you're trying to make things work and it's really, really difficult, and you're thinking, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to have to send these kids somewhere. I'm going to have to, or send this child. Maybe it's just one child in your home. It just feels like you're in crisis mode all of the time, because when you have kids that have severe emotional distress or behavior problems, it can feel like you're just on, in that crisis all the time. Please leave comments below. Call me, set up an appointment to call me by going on my website, parentingchallengingkids.com, and fill out the Get Started page, and let's talk about the options.